What's up? It's the Electrical Coach here, and this is the Electricians in Action, where we would meet up every morning to talk a little bit about the field, a little bit about the code before we go out and fight the good fight. All right, today we're going to talk about panel changes, and I am going to drop a bomb on you guys this morning. I am going to give you the process that you do every single time when you're doing panel changes, and you're going to end up with the same result. I've done over 400 panel changes. I've never had anything fried that was my fault, and I've never had anybody's power out overnight, and I've never had any problems hooking anything back up. Now, sometimes you might get thrown something crazy that you got to go check out. And a good example would be sometimes when they used to convert the old 220 outlets over, instead of taking the white and making it a neutral, they would just take the ground and make it a neutral. So that's something funky that you can run into. Maybe we'll drop a video about that for you guys. But check me out here. So this is the process of how to change a panel where you will end up with the same result every single time, guaranteed. All right, so here's the score. You come into the house. You take the panel cover off, you verify that the power's off, you verify that the power's off inside the panel. Then when you get in that panel, before you touch anything, the first thing that you're going to do is you are going to check for capped off circuits. Circuits that are already there that are not connected to the panel. You do this first every single time. So you're going to look for loose wires that are hanging out. You're going to look for taped up wires that are hanging out. And you're going to get a specific color of tape, and you're going to tape those together in a manner that you can understand what you've got going on. Often I will use red tape. So I'll take red tape and I'll take any wire in that panel that's been capped off before I got there. Because here's the score, guys. You do not want to enter. This is probably the number one thing you can do for the panel change. You cannot re-energize a circuit that was capped off before you got there. The number one thing you want to do when you're doing a panel change is you want to leave that thing exactly how you found it, but better as far as connections, connectivity and all of those things go. But I'm talking about in the manner it was wired, you're going to leave it exactly how you found it as far as how it's connected. And we're going to talk about that a little more as we get through here. All right, so I come in, first thing I do is I find every single wire that was capped off or taped off or anything, and I'm going to tape those red. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and look for any fuses that were out already or any breakers that were off before I got there. Now you can tape those red if you want to, but you may want to tape those another color. So if I get there and there's 4 sets of fuses, one, racking back and forth, and they're all disconnected, I don't want to re-energize those when I get ready to go back and do, hook everything back up. Or if there are breakers that are already off. So I will take those first and I will tape them, you could tape them yellow or another color, or you can tape them in a manner that you understand what's going on. So then at that point, when we've gotten this far, I haven't cut anything loose yet. I've just gotten to the point where I know that nothing that was not energized before I got here is going to be energized when I leave. Then, this is the next most important step. Then what I'm going to do, I'm not going to cut anything loose. I'm going to find all of the white 220s. So every white that is landing to a fuse, the fuse block, a breaker, or anything that's energized, I'm going to take them off one at a time, and I'm going to tape the whole thing black. The reason is, if you get those mixed up and you accidentally energize a white wire that was not supposed to be black, you could fry something, kaboom, fry equipment, fry anything, and it gets freaky if a 220 ever gets, or a 110 ever gets hooked up 220. I mean, it is wonky. If you've ever seen it happen, you can drop it in the comments below. So what I'm going to do is one at a time, I'm going to take those whites off that breaker or off those fuse, and I'm going to tape that whole thing black. I'm not just going to tape the tip black, and I'll tell you why. You get rocking and rolling, you're cutting, you're doing your panel change, you cut those tips off. Next thing you know, you got 3 white wires in your hand, and you don't know which 2 of them are supposed to be hot. So you always take and you tape the whole thing up. That way you know when you hook this back up, it's a 240 volt appliance. Now you are free to go ahead and cut the wires loose. I like to take my dikes and I like to snip them. So you'll go in and you'll snip them all, and I'll leave them on the fuses and breakers, because sometimes you have to go back and match ampacity. So say if it was an HVAC and it's on a 50 or a 60, if I know I've got that wire in my hand, a lot of times I can match the end up and say, hey, that was on a 50 and not on a 60. So once I've done that, I've found all of my white 220s, taped them black, then I'm going to go ahead and I can start cutting the panel loose freely. One more thing that you're going to want to do before you start cutting it loose. I know you guys aren't out doing it right now. After you tape your whites black for your 220s, the next thing that you're going to do, I got ahead of the game, just hang with me. The next thing that you're going to do is you are going to check for black neutrals. This is something that I did not have to do until my 365th panel change. Had never seen it, okay? But now I've seen it several times since. So before you do anything after taping your white 220s, you're going to check and see if there are any black neutrals. This is super important because when you go to hook it back up, if you get polarity reversed, you could potentially fry equipment. I like to leave it the way it was when I got there. So I will take that black off the neutral bar and I will tape that sucker white. Now when I get done, I can go hunt down what circuit has reverse polarity. But while I'm there, when I got there, that black was a neutral. It was connected to the neutral bar, and I want to put it back just like I found it until I can go figure out what the problem is. Then I can start cutting things loosely. So I got a little ahead of the game there. But I know you don't got your hand in the panel right this minute, so you can take all this and soak it in. With that being said, now I am free to start cutting things loose, and I just cut everything loose. Snip, 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 snip. You can snip the neutral bar, you can snip the ground bar, whatever you want to do. Then at that point, I will start straightening out the wires. So I'm going to find the hot, neutral, and ground, or whatever 3 conductors or 4 conductors for all of our cables. Then I'm going to take off the lock rings of all the Romex connectors, and I'm going to pull those out of the panel. Then I'm going to set my new panel, mount my new panel. I'm going to work my branch circuits back in. In the meantime, I'm probably going to land my mains. So if you do it in that same process, couple tips that I want to give you real quick, and we may make whole videos about these, and I probably have some other videos touching on it. If you are dealing with an old range wire, an old 3-wire range, or an old 3-wire dryer, this is super important that you get this. If you are at the second point of disconnect, and even if you're not, but I'm going to explain why. If you're at the second point of disconnect, that wire is a neutral. It is not a ground. You need to tape that wire white, and you need to tape it white all the way up to the neck of the jacket. So again, if you have a 3-wire dryer or a 3-wire range and you have the bare conductor, you are going to tape that white, and you're going to tape it white all the way up to the neck. That is now a neutral. If you're at the first point of disconnect, land it to either one of the bars. If you're at the second point of disconnect, you must land that to the neutral bar. It is not a ground. It is a neutral. It is being used. You want that isolated so there's not objectional current flowing on all of the metal parts. So I hope that this video series, this is the Electricians in Action. I hope that you guys are out here getting it. And if there's anything I can do, to help you in life or business, you just let me know at electricalcodecoach@gmail.com. Remember, the only way that you lose is if you quit. We're out here getting it. We're out here doing it. Don't forget the reasons when it gets hard today. The reasons you're going for your license. The reasons you want to be a journeyman. The reason you want to be a master. Let's get out here and get to it. And don't forget the reasons that you're doing this. Let's get to it. I wanted to take you another action shot of the main bonding jumper and show you that if this was the first point of disconnect, you would screw this screw in tight. And then if I were using these sidebars for neutrals as well, say if they were too short on your panel change or whatever, then I would run a piece of number 4 or whatever size was appropriate for my service to each one of the bars that I used as a neutral bar, just to give it that added level of current flow. Remember, if this is not the first point of disconnect, go ahead and take this screw all the way out, put it in your bag, and keep it. A lot of times the inspectors like if you give them to them. That way if somebody ever gets in a pinch and they've improperly bonded it, they've got that in the truck. But you want to take this out because handymen and different home inspectors will come in and say, oh, that screw needs to be screwed in. Boom, and they'll establish an improper neutral bond connection past the first point of disconnect.